I was holding her purse. That's how it starts. I was standing at the edge of a crowded bar in downtown Boise, holding Ramona's tiny silver purse like an idiot while she danced with a man I didn't recognize. The strap was looped around my wrist. The zipper was halfway undone. Her lip gloss was peeking out like it wanted to escape, and honestly, I knew how it felt. It was a Friday night. The kind where nobody wears jackets, and the air smells like spilt vodka and expired ambition. The DJ was yelling something nobody could hear. People were grinding to a remix of a song that should have stayed in 2012. And my wife, was dancing with a man who looked like he could fix your car and ruin your credit at the same time. He had one of those stupid hats. Not a fedora. Worse, a beanie folded twice so it sat like a mushroom cap. He had a denim vest over a sleeveless hoodie and those prison tattoos people get on purpose now. And Ramona? She was laughing. Not the polite laugh. Not the social chuckle. It was the real one. The one where she throws her head back, her shoulders bounce, and she does this little hop on her left foot like her whole body is agreeing with the joke. I hadn't seen her laugh like that in 3 years. Someone bumped into me. A girl with glitter on her face and no sense of physics. She glanced at the purse on my wrist like I was a museum exhibit, then kept walking. I just stood there, sipping my warm beer, trying not to taste the jealousy boiling in the back of my throat. And then, like a punchline, I watched him grab her hips. 2 hands. Low. Firm. Like he was allowed to. Like I wasn't standing 10 feet away. I wish I could tell you I marched up and said something. That I made a scene. That I punched him, or her, or the wall. But I didn't. I just left. Set the purse down on a table sticky with spilled drinks. Walked past a group of guys yelling about fantasy football. Slid out the back exit where the air smelled like trash and freedom. I walked 3 blocks in the wrong direction before realizing I didn't have my keys. Or my phone. Or my dignity. She didn't text me until an hour later. Just, where are you? Not, are you okay? Not, I'm sorry. Not, let's talk. Just, where are you? Like I was the problem for disappearing. But she didn't know what she'd done yet. Not really. She didn't know that in the second I let go of her purse, something snapped in me. Not loud. Not dramatic. More like a dry twig in a quiet forest. Because that wasn't just dancing. That was a message. And I got it loud and clear. I walked for nearly an hour. No jacket, no wallet, no phone. Just me and the echo of that damn song bouncing around my skull like a curse I couldn't shake. Every step felt like it pulled something loose inside me. The kind of quiet spiral that doesn't make noise until you hit the bottom. When I finally turned back, the bar was still buzzing like nothing had happened. A bouncer gave me a half-suspicious, half-bored look as I re-entered through the front door. Inside, the air hit me like a humid slap. Sweat, cheap cologne, and something sour I couldn't name. I scanned the room. She wasn't on the dance floor anymore. No mushroom hat guy either. No twirling. No laugh. It was just a rotating mass of strangers too deep in their own nights to notice that my world was crumbling in real time. I moved toward the spot where I'd left her purse, expecting the worst. Wallet gone, phone gone, some stranger now drinking on my dime. But the purse was still there. Untouched. Right where I left it. That should have been a relief, but somehow it wasn't. It felt staged. Like a prop in a play I didn't audition for. And Ramona? She was gone. No text. No missed call. No sign. So I waited. 15 minutes turned into 30. The music got slower. People started leaving. I stayed right by the purse like some sad security guard, hoping she'd come back and maybe laugh it off, maybe say she needed air, maybe say anything that made sense. Instead, I got nothing. I finally opened her purse and used her phone to call my number, to check if she'd maybe taken mine by mistake. It rang twice, then went to voicemail. That's when I noticed it. A notification lighting up her screen. A message. From a contact saved as J. I didn't want to look. I really didn't. But I did. J outside. Waited long enough. My stomach dropped like an elevator cable just got cut. I scrolled up. Not a lot. She must have cleared most of their messages. But one from earlier that night said, "He won't even notice. Trust me." I put the phone down like it had burned me. My heart was racing in this weird, silent way. No drama, just this cold, clinical realization that I'd been made into the punchline of a joke I wasn't in on. I waited another 10 minutes. Then 20. Then I left. This time, I took her purse with me. She didn't come home that night. No apology. No explanation. Nothing. I sat in the dark in our living room with the purse on the coffee table and her phone beside it, the screen dead now, as if even it was tired of revealing things. I didn't sleep. I didn't even move. Just stared at the purse like it might open its mouth and confess for her. At 6:07 a.m., the front door opened. She walked in barefoot, holding her shoes in one hand and a half-eaten croissant in the other. She looked at me like I was the surprise. "What are you doing up?" No guilt. No panic. Just casual confusion, like I was a roommate she forgot lived there. And all I could say was, "Who the hell is Jay?" That was the moment something shifted. Her face didn't drop. She didn't cry. She smirked. Not big, just a flicker. A twitch. But I saw it. She sat down across from me, reached into her purse, grabbed her phone like I hadn't already been through it, and said, "You went through my stuff?" No denial. No lies. Just that one sentence. Cool. Calm. Sharp enough to slice. That's when I realized this wasn't new. Whatever this was, it had roots. Deep ones. And she wasn't scared, I knew. She was annoyed I finally did. Ramona didn't answer me right away. She just sat there on the edge of the couch, slowly chewing that piece of croissant like we were having some casual morning after coffee chat. The room was still dark, just a sliver of blue dawn light cutting through the blinds. Her hair was tangled, her eyeliner smudged, and she looked more alive than she had in months. It was like she'd just come back from a vacation while I'd been stuck in some purgatory of paranoia. I asked again, quieter this time, more like a statement than a question, "Who's Jay?" She finally looked at me, not through me, not past me, at me. And the look she gave, it wasn't cruel, exactly. It was worse. It was indifferent, like she'd already played this conversation out in her head and was just bored with the actual performance. "You don't get to ask that," she said. That sentence hit me harder than anything she could have confessed. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just sat there, blinking like I'd been slapped, trying to process what the hell she meant. "I don't get to ask that? After everything? What does that mean?" I asked. "I'm your husband. You vanish in the middle of the night with some guy whose texts are still on your phone, and I don't get to ask who he is?" Ramona stood up, walked to the kitchen like she was shopping for an answer in the fridge. She pulled out the orange juice, took a swig straight from the bottle, then leaned against the counter like she wasn't detonating my world piece by piece. "It means," she said, wiping her mouth with the back of her hand, "that you stopped asking the right questions a long time ago. This is just cleanup." I felt something in my chest fold inward. That sentence was surgical, precise. She didn't say, "I made a mistake," or "I didn't mean for this to happen." No excuses. No tears. Just this eerie finality. Like I was the only one who hadn't accepted that the marriage was over. But here's the thing. I had been asking. Maybe not out loud, but in my own way. I'd been noticing all the little shifts. How she stopped touching me in passing. How her phone was always face down. How her scent changed slightly one month. More floral, less her. I noticed. I just kept hoping it was a phase. That maybe she was stressed. That maybe if I just stayed steady, she'd come back to me. She never left physically, but emotionally. She had walked out months ago. I stood up, not sure what I was doing, just pacing in slow, heavy loops around the living room like a caged animal. I asked her the only thing I had left. "Did you sleep with him?" She didn't flinch, didn't even blink, but she didn't answer either. Instead, she said, "You want me to say yes so you have a reason to hate me. Something clean. But it's messier than that, Grady. Always has been." That's when I felt something snap. Not anger, not jealousy, just defeat. Like I'd reached the end of a long hallway only to find a locked door and no key. "So what now?" I asked, barely above a whisper. She shrugged. "That's up to you. I'm not leaving. Not yet. But I'm not apologizing either." That should have been the end of it. The moment I packed a bag and walked out. But I didn't. I just stood there while she walked past me, brushed her hand against my arm without even noticing she'd done it, and disappeared into the bathroom. The door clicked shut. The shower turned on. And I was alone again, with a purse that still smelled like her perfume, a phone that held more truth than our whole marriage, and a gut feeling that told me this wasn't just about cheating. This was about control. She had it. I'd given it to her. And now? She was going to twist it slowly, like a knife, until I did something stupid. The sound of the shower was the loudest thing in the house. It had this rhythmic hiss, almost like a whisper, like it was telling me to get out while I still could. I sat on the couch, not because I wanted to, but because I didn't trust my legs to hold me up anymore. I stared at the bathroom door, steam curling out from underneath, and I realized I didn't even know if I wanted her to come back out. I didn't know what I was supposed to say when she did. It wasn't just what she'd done. It was how easily she'd done it. How naturally she moved through the lie, like it was a second language she'd been fluent in long before I ever caught on. She didn't stumble, didn't trip over her own deception. She floated through it, graceful, untouchable. Like the version of Ramona I'd built in my head was a character she'd grown tired of playing. That morning, after she got out of the shower, she didn't say a word. She wrapped herself in a towel, passed me like I was invisible, and disappeared into the bedroom. I heard drawers opening, hangers shifting, zippers. She was getting dressed like it was any other Saturday, like the world hadn't cracked open 12 hours ago. I thought I might follow her, ask her again, push for answers. But something inside me was changing. The version of me that chased, that begged for clarity, that needed to be reassured. He was starting to rot. And under him, something colder was beginning to crawl out. Instead of confronting her, I left. Not for good. Not with bags. I just walked out the front door and got in my truck like I was running an errand. It was almost laughable how normal it must have looked to her. But in my head, I was going somewhere dangerous, to a place I promised myself I'd never go. Her past. I drove across town to a little coffee shop Ramona used to work at when we first got married. It was one of those pseudo-artsy places with chalkboard menus and mismatched mugs. I hadn't stepped foot in there in years, but I remembered the name of the manager, a woman named Lacey, who always wore red lipstick and talked like she was narrating a podcast. She was still there, still wearing that same shade of red. She smiled when she saw me, but it was cautious. I asked if she had a second, and to my surprise, she led me outside to the back patio without hesitation. We sat on an old iron bench surrounded by dying potted herbs. And then I asked her the question that had been buzzing in my skull since 6:07 a.m. Did Ramona ever cheat on me back then? Lacey didn't blink. She didn't gasp or act shocked. She just looked down at her hands for a long moment before saying, "You sure you want me to answer that?" I nodded. She took a breath like she was about to jump into cold water. I never saw anything with my own eyes, Grady. But she had patterns. Little things. Disappearing for her lunch breaks, showing up in different clothes than she started the shift in. There were rumors. A guy named Victor, I think. Maybe two others. I kept my mouth shut because I figured you knew. Or didn't want to. I felt like I'd just swallowed broken glass. I thanked her. I don't know why. It wasn't a favor. It felt more like confirmation of something I already knew deep down. Something I'd ignored for years because the truth costs too much to live with. On the drive home, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even grip the steering wheel tight. I just drove in silence, the way I used to when I couldn't afford gas and had to coast every downhill stretch. I felt weightless in the worst way. And when I walked back into the house, she wasn't there. No note. No message. Just gone. But her laptop was open, and her email was still logged in. I'd never gone through her laptop before. Not because I'm noble, but because I was afraid of exactly this moment. The moment when you realize that knowing the truth might actually be worse than not knowing. I opened her inbox. No hesitation. No guilt. And there it was. An email sent 2 nights ago. To Jeremy. W***** at protonmail.com. Subject, tomorrow night. Body, he'll be too tired to notice. Same place. I'll leave by midnight this time. My name was never mentioned. I wasn't even a variable in their equation. Just an obstacle to be bypassed. A background character. She wasn't cheating in a fit of passion. She was scheduling it. Like a business meeting. Like I didn't even exist. I didn't close the laptop. I didn't slam it shut or throw it or smash it like the movies say you should. I just stared at the email, then read it again, slower. Word by word. He'll be too tired to notice. She meant me. I was the tired. I was the blind spot. I was the assumption. It wasn't the cheating that crushed me, not really. It was how confident she was that I wouldn't do anything about it. That she could write me off in one sentence and not even worry I'd read it. That I was predictable, passive, dull. The man who'd keep mowing the lawn and fixing the thermostat while she disappeared into motel rooms with encrypted email threads and burner numbers. So I made a choice. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I wanted to see how far she'd go. How much of me she could erase without blinking. I needed to watch her lie to my face one more time, not to catch her, but to feel it, to burn the shape of it into my memory. The shrug of her shoulders, the twist of her mouth, the slight pause between words when she made up stories I'd pretend to believe. I needed that moment. Because the version of me she thought she knew, the quiet one, the forgiver, the guy who swallowed shame like cough syrup, he was slipping away. And I wanted her to see what crawled out from underneath once he was gone. She came home that night at 9:42 p.m. Casual, calm, shopping bags in hand. Trader Joe's, some candles from Target, a new charger cable. Like she'd spent the afternoon redecorating her soul. I sat at the kitchen table, phone in my hand. One of her emails pulled up, minimized, waiting just beneath the screen. My heart wasn't racing. My hands weren't shaking. I'd already mourned it. The marriage, the trust, the illusion, it was already buried. What I was waiting for now was the performance. Hey, she said, leaning against the doorframe. I got that weird oat milk you like. The one in the ugly green carton. She smiled. And in that moment, I felt something I didn't expect. Pity. Not for me. For her. Because she really thought I was still in the dark. She kissed the top of my head like she was proud of herself. Like she was a wife again. Playing house. Putting the mask back on. And I let her. I waited. We ate dinner in silence. She scrolled her phone. I asked nothing. Gave her space to walk into the trap on her own. And just after she finished her second glass of wine, I saw it. That little flicker of guilt she mistook for a yawn. She finally said, "You've been quiet." I looked at her. Not like a man who's hurt. Like a man watching a test subject in a sealed room. "Just tired," I said. "Did you have a good day?" She nodded. "Boring. Grocery store. Walked around the mall. Oh, ran into Jenna." She said hi. "Jenna, our neighbor. Moved out last year. Gone since March." That's when I smiled. A real, genuine smile. Because she couldn't even keep her lies fresh. She was recycling old names, like a bad writer on a deadline. I stood up, took her empty glass, rinsed it under the tap. Then I turned around and asked her, slowly, carefully, "Do you love me?" The room went still. You could hear the hum of the fridge, the faint rattle of the AC through the vents. She blinked. Twice. And then she said, "Of course I do." That was it. That was the moment I knew I'd never believe another word she said for the rest of my life. I said goodnight and went to bed early. But I didn't sleep. Because I wasn't finished yet. The next morning, I called a guy I knew from high school. Not a friend, not really. We ran in different circles. But we reconnected on Facebook a few years ago when he fixed my alternator for half the usual price. His name's Clayton. Back then, I knew him for beer, bar fights, and dropping out sophomore year. Now, I knew him for something else. Clayton ran a little surveillance business. Mostly suspicious husbands, the occasional shady landlord, and once, according to him, a woman who thought her cat was being poisoned by the neighbor. I told him I didn't need anything illegal. Just eyes, pictures, locations, times. He asked if it was a cheating thing. I said yes. He asked if I wanted a camera in the house. I said no. He asked if I had a name. I gave him the email address, Jeremy. W*** at ProtonMail.com. Clayton laughed. Proton Mail? Classy. Definitely a cheater. I gave him $300 up front. Told him she was seeing him again this week. That she'd be gone by Friday night. That she thought I was still too tired to notice. But she was wrong. Because now, I was wide awake. Clayton called me on Sunday evening. I remember because I was reheating leftover soup while Ramona scrolled Pinterest beside me, humming like she didn't have 1,000 secrets clinging to her skin. My phone buzzed on the counter. I looked down, and for a split second, I considered not answering. I thought, maybe I don't want to know what comes next. But then I looked at her, still smiling, still sipping her wine like she was the star of a life she fabricated, and I picked up. Got something, Clayton said, skipping pleasantries. You want to talk now? Or should I send photos and let you cry in peace? Talk now, I said, walking into the garage and locking the door behind me. He paused. That pause said everything. She met him again Friday night. Just like you said. Motel off Route 14. But it's not just him, Grady. It's more complicated. How? She's got a second phone. I didn't say anything. He kept going. Saw her use it when she came out of the room. Not the phone you gave me the number to trace. Different model. Older. Slipped it into a second purse, black leather, no logos. I followed her after. She dropped it off at a P.O. box. Real fast. Like she's done it before. I felt my pulse in my teeth. A second phone. A second bag. A damn P.O. box. Not only was she cheating, she was organized about it. She wasn't sloppy, wasn't impulsive. This was maintenance. Routine. A system she'd put in place not just to cheat on me, but to protect the other life from colliding with mine. Clayton texted me photos while we were still on the call. There she was, standing in the soft yellow glow of a gas station light, her hair up, wearing the same hoodie she always wore to go for drives. She was smiling, not nervously, not hesitantly, but with ease, comfort, like she belonged in this version of herself, the version I never met. I stared at the images for a long time after we hung up. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just sat down on a tool bench next to a broken rake and tried to remember when I stopped being part of her real life, or if I ever was. That night, she curled up next to me in bed and rested her head on my shoulder like nothing had changed. She smelled like that vanilla lotion I always loved. She touched my chest like she still meant it. And I let her, not because I forgave her, but because I wanted to see how much of herself she was willing to give me, even as she gave more to someone else. I asked her, gently, "Do you ever think about starting over?" She shifted under the blanket. "What do you mean?" "I mean, packing everything up, leaving this town, starting clean, like a reset." She was quiet for a moment, then said, "Sometimes, but starting over doesn't fix what's already broken. It just gives you new things to break." That should have been a confession, but she said it with a smile, like it was poetry, like she'd been thinking about it for a long time. And that's when I realized this wasn't just about cheating. This was about escape. She didn't want to cheat on me. She wanted to become someone else entirely. And somehow, she was already doing it. The next morning, I drove out to the post office Clayton mentioned. I waited in the parking lot until it opened. Went inside, showed the clerk a photo of Ramona, and said I thought she might have left her ID in one of the P.O. boxes. She barely looked up, but nodded. "I've seen her," the clerk muttered. "Box 311. That's all I needed." I didn't try to open it. Didn't break any laws. But I noted the number and the timing. She came every other Friday morning, between 7:30 and 8 a.m. That was when she was supposed to be at her spin class, which I paid for. I went home, opened her laptop again, and this time, I searched something else. An old thought. A memory I hadn't wanted to revisit. I searched her name, but not in the usual places. I searched forums, obscure freelance sites, classifieds, and there it was, buried deep in the listings of a private ad board used mostly by freelancers and sketchy consultants. Name, Mara E. Service offered, discreet logistics consulting. No questions asked. Email, a burner. Not hers, but similar enough. Reply to, available only by secure channels. Fridays preferred. My Ramona had a second name, Mara, a second schedule, a second identity, maybe even a second career. And suddenly, everything clicked. The secrecy, the confidence, the detached way she watched me, like I was just one part of the story, but not the only one. I wasn't being cheated on by a woman who fell out of love. I was living with a woman who'd outgrown the version of herself I knew, and she was keeping me around as a cover story. The moment I knew she was lying wasn't when I found the second phone, or the email to J, or the P.O. box, or the name Mara. Those were all symptoms, evidence, but not the moment. No, the moment I knew, in that cold, bone-deep way that doesn't go away even when you sleep, was when she kissed me after dinner one night and whispered, "You're all I need." It was too well-timed, too rehearsed. Her lips were warm, her voice was soft, but her eyes never flinched. No hesitation, no fear. That wasn't the sound of a woman fighting to save a marriage. That was the sound of a woman maintaining a performance. So I decided to stop being an audience. I spent the next 2 days preparing something I told myself wasn't a trap, but let's be honest, it was. Just not the kind you'd expect. No secret cameras, no confrontation, no begging for the truth. Instead, I planned a weekend away. Romantic, spontaneous, nostalgic. I told her I found an old cabin 3 hours north, a place we'd talked about visiting years ago, but never did. I said I booked it for Friday night through Sunday. No phones, no distractions, just us. She hesitated, barely, but then smiled and said, "That sounds perfect." That night, I watched her pack. She double-checked her makeup bag, her hairbrush, her nightwear. She brought the expensive perfume she never wore around me. The silk robe I bought her 3 Christmases ago and found still wrapped in plastic 2 years later. She was preparing for something. But it wasn't me. Friday morning, we left. Or at least, she thought we did. Here's what really happened. I dropped her off at a coffee shop a few blocks from our house under the pretense of picking up supplies. I told her I needed to grab firewood and fill the tank, that I'd swing back around in 30. She kissed me goodbye and said, "I'll wait here." But the second she stepped inside, I circled the block once and parked down the street. Waited. Watched. 15 minutes later, a silver sedan pulled up. New. Clean. Driven by a man I'd never seen before. Tall. Mid-40s. Wearing a button-up like he was heading to a conference. She got in without hesitation. Like they'd rehearsed it. And that's when I realized the weekend trip wasn't about me at all. It was hers. She was going somewhere. With him. Under the illusion that I was off in the woods thinking we were together. Except I wasn't in the woods. I was 5 car lengths behind them the entire way. They didn't go to a cabin. They went to a rental property outside the city. One of those sleek, sterile Airbnbs with a keypad lock and curated rustic furniture. I watched them unload groceries. A bottle of wine. Her overnight bag. She was laughing. The kind of laugh that used to belong to me. I stayed in my truck until sunset, parked down the road, and called Clayton to confirm the location. "Yep," he said. "Same guy from before? Jeremy." So the email was real. The plans were real. And now, the final piece was real too. She was spending the weekend living a lie, while I played the part of the clueless husband just long enough for her to reveal everything. But again, this wasn't about catching her in the act. It was about watching her choose the lie over and over again, even when the truth was close enough to taste. I drove back to town that night. Quiet. Focused. No rage. No desperation. I was done trying to fix something that she'd already replaced. When I got home, I didn't cry. I didn't pour whiskey or stare blankly out the window. I did something she never expected. I opened a new email account. And I wrote to her, Tamara, not Ramona. I used the same platform. The same tone. The same language her clients used. Subject line, requesting logistics consulting. Urgent. Body, looking to start fresh. Fridays work best. Discretion essential. Can pay up front. I sent it. Then I waited. 40 minutes later, I got a reply. No name. No greeting. Just. Understood. Use this thread for coordination. Trust and silence are expected. I stared at the screen and felt something twist inside me. She didn't even recognize me. I wasn't her husband anymore. I was just another transaction. I didn't sleep that night. Not out of anger. Not even out of heartbreak anymore. But clarity. For the first time in years, I could see the entire map of my life. Not as the quiet, loyal husband who kept hoping she'd return to the woman I fell in love with, but as a man who finally realized he didn't have to be anyone's placeholder. I read the email chain 3 times. Her responses were cold, efficient, detached, almost like muscle memory. There was no hesitation, no second-guessing. She had built an entirely separate life, not for escape, but for control. She hadn't just left the marriage emotionally. She'd replaced it with a structure that gave her all the power. But the real power? That came from walking away with dignity still intact. The next morning, I packed 2 bags. Not in a storm of chaos. No slammed drawers. No shattered picture frames. Just the essentials. Clothes, documents, a few sentimental things that hadn't yet been contaminated by lies. I printed the emails, all of them. From her to Jay. From her burner address to clients. The ad she placed under a false name. I didn't do it for revenge. I didn't plan to shame her, expose her, or burn it all down. I just wanted her to see it in black and white. No hiding. No spin. When she got home Sunday evening, later than she promised, of course, I was already sitting on the porch. 2 suitcases at my feet. Her laptop open beside me. The printed emails in a neat stack. She stepped out of the car with that familiar rehearsed smile. "Hey, babe. Sorry, traffic was." She stopped when she saw the papers. She didn't ask what they were. She knew. The smile vanished. For once, there was no script to reach for. Just silence. I stood up slowly. Not to confront her. Not to demand answers. Just to end it properly. "I know everything," I said, voice steady. "Mara. The phone. Jeremy. The P.O. box. The emails. I know all of it." She looked at the stack, then at me. Her mouth opened like she might say something, but nothing came out. I continued. I'm not here to scream. I'm not going to humiliate you. I'm not even going to ask why. Because honestly, I don't think the answer matters anymore. She blinked. Her eyes were glossy, but she wasn't crying yet. Maybe she didn't know how to. I picked up my bags. I loved you. I really did. And maybe part of me always will. But the woman I loved doesn't exist anymore. And neither does the man who let this go on. And then I left. Not in rage. Not broken. Just free. I moved into a small rental apartment 2 towns over. Nothing special. 2nd floor. View of a parking lot and a dumpster. But it was mine. And for the first time in years, I started rebuilding. Not just my life, but myself. I went to therapy. Joined a small hiking group. Started playing guitar again. Something I gave up back when our life together started revolving around keeping her happy. And slowly, piece by piece, I came back to life. 6 months later, I got a letter. No return address. Just my name, handwritten in the corner. Inside was a photo of the cabin we were supposed to visit that weekend, the one I invented to catch her. On the back, in her handwriting, just one line. I wish I'd chosen that version of the story. I didn't reply, because the truth is, she never understood. I didn't just walk away from her. I walked back to myself. And that's the real ending.